Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me along. My name's Tom and I'm creative producer at the ROH, and it's my role really to find exciting new ways of engaging audiences in these really old art forms that have been around for hundreds of years and desperately need a bit of invigoration for a new century. For the purposes of this talk, just to conflict what Mitch was saying just now, I'm using VR to talk about the whole sort of immersive tech stuff. So here we are. This is Royal Opera House in Covent Garden. Oh, is there potential for presenter notes here? Is there a laptop? Chaps?
That's not let me go.
I'll just keep going. Well, if I could have presenter slides, that'd be great. Built in 1858, grade 1 listed, capacity of 2,200. It's one of the most beautiful theatres in the country. And we sell out at 97% capacity. It's a great asset, and it's a real privilege to work there. We're the busiest lyric theatre in the world. Hundreds of performances every year on our 2 stages, and we employ full-time 1,100 people on site in Covent Garden, which is quite a lot of people. It makes our art forms incredibly expensive to run, and that kind of comes through a bit in the ticket price, but it's just one of those necessary evils. I want to talk about 3 things in the 15 minutes I've got. I want to touch on the Nutcracker 360 and Nabucco 360, 2 projects that we have already delivered. A little bit of R&D that we've been doing with our lighting department, and some HoloLens R&D we've been working on a bit with Microsoft as well. So Nutcracker 360, this was the first piece of 360 we ever properly made. We partnered with a company called Surround Vision, who I'm sure many of you will be aware of. It was a monoscopic capture and a third-person documentary. And what we really wanted to do was give a unique behind-the-scenes glimpse of what it takes to be a dancer in the Royal Ballet. One of those dancers there is a lady called Julia, who was dancing in the corps de ballet for the very first time in that show. So you follow her through rehearsals, through the process of putting on this amazing sort of piece of theatre. And we learnt, thank you so much. And we learnt a huge amount from doing this experiment. I think Surround Vision as well found it an amazing experience. This was the sort of the climax of the whole thing, where you feel like you're on stage with them as at the end of Act 1 as they're dancing the snowflakes. And this had a huge hit on our YouTube channel, a couple of 100,000 views when it came out 18 months or so ago. One thing we did learn, though, is that the final shot of this experience, you start in the middle of the stage and the camera flies out about 12 meters right into our fly tower, which created a sense of vertigo for some users when they were in HMDs. So we learned a bit from that. It was a really good first test for us, and we got some really great feedback. Am I the only one who doesn't understand this? How come I'm only seeing the floor? I'm so confused. Someone enlighten me. It goes back to what Sol Rogers and the panel were saying a little bit earlier. In the beginning, I couldn't understand why I could only see the floor. Then I realized that I'm an idiot. About 15 years ago, I couldn't even use the internet without blocking my telephone line, and now this magic is possible. Awesome. So we got really fantastic feedback from our hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and that really spurred us on to think about how we could use this tech a little bit more. So the next project, I thought we would up the ante and set ourselves another challenge. Oh, I've lost my presenter notes. This is the chorus of the Royal Opera. They're 36. There's more than 36 here. They've been augmented a bit. But they're 36 fully trained professional singers, some of the best in the world. And every night they come together to make this amazing sort of homogenized sound when they're singing on our stage. And I really wanted to give a sense of a first-person narrative. How could you feel like you were one of the chorus and you were able to be right in the middle of that amazing group of people? And for me, the biggest challenge with this was sound. Doing sound in 360 is hard enough as it is, and technology has moved on a lot with ambisonic mics and such. But if we were to place, I'm sort of judging the technical capability in the room as quite high, so Excuse me for skipping over some stuff, but if we were to place a binaural head or an ambisonic mic in the middle of that group and capture it, it would sound utterly horrific. You'd get a lot of the singers right next to you, but you would hear nothing of the orchestra, who are like 8 meters away and sunk in a pit. You'd hear all their feet on the sand, and it would be really, really terrible. So we really challenged ourselves to find a way of doing a really proper ambisonic mix with this. We also wanted to push the visuals as well, and so we partnered with a company called Jaunt VR, who I'm sure some of you are aware of. They've got a Jaunt 1 camera, and it was pretty revolutionary at the time, sort of just over a year ago when we wanted to do this. And they brought their camera on site. And they also brought us a bit of capital. I think we're a charity, and so we don't have a lot of capability to invest heavily in this stuff. So we were looking for partnerships. And the quid pro quo with Jaunt was that they got amazing content and access to our stage and the full experience on their platform, and we got their expertise and their hardware and their pipeline for delivering a great 360. So here's a little bit of it. This is just a sort of a flat render out. And we learned a huge amount doing this project about first-person narrative in 360. I'm not sure we completely and utterly nailed it. You'll see in the next shot. I love this shot. This was a great one. This sort of reveal of the auditorium at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's the only time. He's a member of the crew. He's not real staff. So this idea that it's a first-person narrative, that you're inside the chorus, was slightly faked a bit because actually the chorus members couldn't get that close to the camera rig because of the stitch line issues that you get. So we had to fake it a bit. We had to reblock the scene. But I hope what you get is this amazing sense of presence, that you're on our stage, that you could be a performer, that you're surrounded by this team of people who do this every single night. And so we actually ended up suspending the rig from the fly tower and suspending it at the same place in the rehearsal room and on stage so that we could do this crossfade coming up. Now, of course, you don't get the full sound mix here, but the final mix is 4-channel ambisonic. And as I said, we really tried to push that as far as we could. At one end of the spectrum, you've got sort of like the high-end CD stereo mix of what people think opera should sound like, and at the other end, you've got the real, what does it actually sound like in the room. And we were trying to find a happy medium between the two that suited our performers, who were really nervous about exposing themselves in this way, but also give the audience something that they wouldn't get if they just went out and bought this piece of music from a shop. And I think maybe, in hindsight, we stayed a little bit safe. The ambisonic is very subtle, so as you're moving your head in the headset, you do get that sense of presence, but it's not really, really overt. And I think if we were to do it again, we'd want to even push that a little bit further. Next project. This is James Simpson. He's our lighting visualizer. He's the only one of him in the country. And what he does is he sits down with a lighting designer before every show and builds a model of that set in a 3D piece of software, and then they light the show on computer. That saves a huge amount of time on stage and allows them to go into the first rehearsals on stage with all of the lighting plots rigged up. So he's got a load of 3D models of this, of all of our sets. And here he is with a HoloLens on. And what we wanted to do with this piece of R&D was see whether there is a future where James and colleagues, wherever they are in the world, could collaborate on a piece of set via augmented reality. So this is really quite new, this video, so apologies for the sort of the roughness of it. But here he is in one of our rehearsal spaces, and he's just queued up one of our pieces of set, which he built in Maya, and now there it is full room scale in our rehearsal room. Now the potential for this, it's early days, but we think the potential for this is massive. There's theatre making is a hugely risky business. We take a risk every single night that we put that curtain up at 7:30 on stage. And if we can mitigate against that risk a little bit more and find new technologies that help us do that, then we're going to try and exploit them. And we think that this could be one of those that just gives our creatives a better sense. Here he is in a smaller rehearsal room with a smaller scale set. So imagine first day of rehearsals and the director's saying, well, the set's not ready yet, you singers, but hey, look at this over here. Here's where you're going to be standing in this scene. Here's where you're going to be in this scene. It could be a really powerful tool. And then this is, again, quite a rough representation, but this is transporting our 3D model of our theatre into Vive. And this is one of our sets for Lucia di Lammermoor from earlier this season. And you can see James is teleporting around the set. And what we're really keen to exploit is our directors and designers and creatives work all the way around the world, and they very rarely come together in London to talk about how they're going to stage something. And they need to start working about 3 years ahead of a show actually coming on stage. How fantastic if they could do that remotely via the power of VR. We're hoping to develop this a whole lot more, and we really think that it's not just going to be used in our disciplines, but across the theatre and entertainment sector. And I'm sure other people are exploring it as well. So there's quite a few challenges for us going ahead, and really sort of the central thing that I wanted to sort of put out there is that we don't know really whether VR can change our art forms. What we do know is that opera and ballet have always used the latest technology they have at their disposal to push the art forms on. When Mozart wrote the Magic Flute back in 17 whatever, he only was able to write that opera, which deals with light and dark and night and day, because they developed phosphorus lighting so that he could do that on stage. And similarly, Wagner, the kind of the big heavyweight of the opera world, was always using the latest stage technology to bring his bits of theatre to life. So we see immersive tech as the next step for us. And we're really excited about it, but we're also challenged by it, how it sort of fits with our world. We're planning our stage time for 2023 and 2024 at the moment, whilst the tech companies that we're talking to are like, well, we only really deal in the next 6 months. And that's a slight challenge for us. Challenge number 2 is obviously money. I mentioned we're a charity. We need partnerships to make these sorts of projects work. The really great case study in this regard is the RSC, who just collaborated with Imaginarium and Intel to do their Tempest with a VR Prospero. And that's something that everybody else in the industry has been looking at and thinking, wow, we should have a bit of that. And then the third and final challenge for us is how we make choices with the finite resources at our disposal. We've got choices about what to concentrate on. What should be the balance between those areas I mentioned, the audience-facing stuff and the more pushing the sort of the production line on. And we've also got challenges about the platforms and partners that we work with. We've worked with Surround Vision in the early days. We've worked with Jaunt VR. We've done a bit of work with Rewind. Who should we be looking at in the next 12, 18 months? And what's going to be the right decision? We want to remain really resolutely agnostic in our approach if we can. So I just wanted to sort of round up by giving you a sense of, what's next for us in this area. This is, oh no, that's not him at all. We see a lot of potential to develop the art forms and to engage new audiences and to do a bit of R&D. And we've just launched an audiences lab, which is about trying to find partnerships and trying to fast track new technologies that might be audience-facing. We've got a specific focus, we hope, on haptics, on spatial audio, and holographic capture. Those are just 3 areas of many. We also really want to give our artists the tools they need to discover new ways of telling these really old stories. We're coming from 2 art forms where the creators at the moment are pretty traditional, pretty conservative in their approach, a lot of them. But once they're exposed to the possibilities of this, we really feel that they could take flight and that it could be a really exciting exploration for them. So we're doing a piece of R&D with this man here. It's hard to tell who he is because he's not facing us, but that's our resident choreographer, Wayne McGregor, who's a real sort of firebrand in the dance world. And when he's not choreographing for our stage, he's working in Hollywood movies or on Tom York videos. We're doing a bit of R&D with him around mocap and procedural VR. So the idea being that how could each person who enters this experience, this choreographed piece in VR, get a different individual experience from that by the way that they interact with the dancers in that space. And that's quite exciting. So just to really round up, everything that we do is about that. And that is a collective experience. And that's a big sort of challenge for us at the moment, in that VR isn't really collective enough for us to feel like there's this sort of collective emotional response. There's some really deep singular emotional responses, but we're about collective emotional responses, and I think we're really interested in how we could do that. And there's a sense of magic here, and we have to keep magic at the core of everything that we do, and if we don't, we won't have any audiences in the future. So it's pretty exciting. We're aiming to share all of our learnings, the good and the bad, with the rest of the sector. The Arts Council have challenged us to be as open as possible as we go into this field, so we've got a Medium blog that's just here. And I think that's about it. If anyone's got any questions, let me know. Just wait for a mic.
Hand up over there already. Oh, yeah, and a couple.
The lady down the front here was very quick.
Yeah, I think she should get the first microphone. We only have got a couple of minutes, but I think this is such a rare opportunity to speak to someone in such a niche relative to the rest of this. We can go into lunchtime in a couple of minutes.
I like being niche.
Dan's not here to tell me off, is he?
This lady just down here was the first, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, lady on the front row.
This is so fascinating, and I was brought to tears almost with the Nabucco piece. Do you feel that this is a way that we can actually bring something that is an art form very highbrow to people, and they're cut off, opera, ballet, oh, it's for the rich people, it's for the posh, the very intelligent, etc. Is it a way that we can bring that to everyone through virtual reality?
Yes, that's absolutely.
And how are you planning to do that? Because, like you said, if you don't go to the theater, you miss the magic of being in the audience and feeling that liveness.
So I think those experiments you've seen were one sort of exploration of that. I think what we're increasingly going to explore is how we could make pieces of art, operas and ballets, for these this medium, so that we maybe explore non-linear narrative, which is something we could learn a huge amount from the game sector on. We maybe explore chapterizing. Who knows? But I think it's about getting our artists who have amazing skills in what they do for it's not 16 by 9, but that proscenium arch, and how we can translate that into a more immersive environment. Yeah, like the Punch Drunk Samsung experiment, which, we've talked to all of the people who've made that quite extensively, and I think the exciting thing about that was that the whole thing about putting on the VR headset was a piece of theatre in itself. So location-based VR is something that we are actively exploring for the next 18 months. Putting on a VR headset, experiencing something alongside a wider piece of narrative theatre. So we're looking extensively at the theme park sector, because they're doing a lot of great stuff there.
Great, and I've definitely got time for one more, then you might have
that lady there who's the other one.
Great, and then you might have to brace yourself for being mobbed when you leave the stage.
Hey, great talk, thanks. What's your experience of 360 camera rigs that are available, and what are their limitations?
Oh, golly. Well, I'm not an expert, but the ones we've used, the first one was a GoPro rig, and it was fine. It was a monoscopic rig that Surround Vision brought. It did what we needed it to do. But as Mitch said before, you know, you could definitely see the loss of quality. We were quite impressed with the Jaunt 1 rig that we used last summer. It's quite big, it's like basketball size, and it looks like something like from the Death Star. But the quality of that was extremely high. But we've done a test with the Nokia Ozo. I have to say that the rig that, for ease of use, that we've used since then, that's really impressed us was the Google Jump rig. Just because the whole pipeline afterwards made it really, really simple, and you can't see a stitch line. It was dead easy to use. So, yeah, horses for courses. I think we're looking more now at the more cinematic end of the rigs, where you shoot in sections and then stitch together. But certainly for now, if you're wanting to start something just on the fly, the Google Jump rig did it for us really well.
Fantastic. Well, yes, sorry we have run out of time. Better give people enough time to go for lunch. So, yeah, thank you, Tom.
No worries.
Fantastic
Thanks very much,
stuff.
everyone.